Hi there and welcome back. This is Tue from RTG Group. Today I'll talk to you about how to start a clothing brand. I'll try and tell you how I started my first clothing brand, what problems I had, what thoughts I had, and how I did everything to make it become a success. I started my first clothing brand in 2006. I started it with a good friend because we thought there was like a gap in the market. At that time, everything in the Scandinavian fashion was black jeans and white t-shirts, white shirts. Everything was very boring. So we thought that we would start out with a very simple, small clothing line that just had nice, colorful, fashionable cuts, but with a twist. So we wanted to do products that was not so boring. We wanted to have lots of colors, nice prints, all over prints. Honestly, we just wanted to do products that we liked ourselves. We sat down and thought, okay, what do we actually want to wear ourselves? What do we think that other people would like to wear? But mostly, what are nice products? What colors do we want to wear? What did we feel that was missing in the fashion industry? So we sat down and we made a few drawings and was like, okay, this one could work or this one couldn't work. And then we just started out with a small range to see how people reacted on it. It was quite simple actually. Of course, when you want to develop a fashion brand, you need to consider how many products do you want to sell. If you want to just sell a few, you can design just what you want to wear yourself. But I would say you need to consider what other people might want to wear. But of course, you still need to be true to what you want to do yourself. If that's the type of brand you want to do, you can also just do cheap products or a special design if you think you can sell a lot. But for us, it was important to do something that we really liked ourselves, something that we would wear. And then of course, we had the idea that if we like it a lot, then there must be other people out there that want to wear the same product. Because people are not that different. Everyone wants to be unique, sure, and everyone should have their own style, or there should be room for everyone. But if you look at fashion, there are trends, there are things that move in a certain way. And I would say that for many brands, if they do something that they like themselves, there's a big chance that someone else will also like it. I remember when we started out the clothing brand, I went to the Copenhagen Fashion Fair. I went there with my friend, who was also the co-founder of the brand. And we were walking around looking at what are the other brands exhibiting, and everything was white and black. So we were like, we need to do something with colors. So our first product line was a few t-shirts, few sweatshirts. They were colorful, they had colorful prints. And then we had one signature item that was actually a gray sweatshirt with small sheeps printed on, small white sheeps. And then some kind of cloud pattern. And this sweatshirt was so significant and so unique that no other brands were doing anything similar to it. So once we did that, once it hit the stores, everyone knew that that product was different than the other products. And they instantly could see that, okay, this is this brand, This is a Björkgren brand. And then instantly they said, okay, what else are they doing? The reason why we put a sheep on our things was not because we really liked sheep, to be honest, but it was because we wanted to find something different. And we were actually sitting one night drinking cocktails, my friend and I, and we were talking about, okay, how to start this brand. And at the time there was a TV show in Denmark with some fashion experts. And one season they said, oh, this season we should wear safari clothes. And the people on TV were like, why should we wear safari? And they were like, oh, because we say safari. So we had these experts on TV saying, oh, we say safari, so we need to wear safari clothes, everyone. So we were like, okay, we just say sheep then. So we had a small saying under our logo for the first collection saying, we say sheep. It had no meaning at all actually. We just said, we say sheep, so we put sheep on it. So we had a small hang tag that was cut out like a sheep. The neck label said, we say sheep, and we had sheep all over the design, all over the product. And that was our way of saying, okay, we want to be different. We want to do something that the others are not doing. We want to do something that is not really fashion. We just do it because we like it. So we don't really care. It's just because it's nice. There's no doubt about that before you start a clothing brand, you need to figure out what kind of brand you want to do. because you can try and aim for low prices and you can try and compete with the big companies out there like H&M or Zara. There are so many huge companies that does huge volume. You can do that if you have a lot of money, but then you need to maybe focus a lot on the trends in the market and be very price driven. You can also do the opposite, which is try and do something that you want to do, or try and do something that you think is not out there. And if you do that, you can have another price point. You can go to other shops. You don't have to be dictated by what is fashion actually. You don't have to follow the rules that are out there. You don't have to be very price driven or follow the trends in the market. You can also do what you want to do, because there's probably other people like you that wants to do a special look or a certain design. But of course you need to consider who's your audience, who's supposed to be the target group. But the more you focus on what you like yourself, the more true you're going to be to your product, the more identity you'll probably have in your product, the more of a nice product it will probably be. But of course, don't forget your target group, because you need to sell the product. If you don't want to sell any products, then it's probably going to be hard convincing a factory to do your designs and your samples and your productions. So it's got to be a balance, you know. When we set out to design our first collection, we decided to make it very simple. We actually just had 3 t-shirts, they were all the same fit, 3 t-shirts, 4 sweatshirts, there was 2 in one fit and 2 in another, and a couple of jackets, and they were also the same fit. That was it. We had 24 products hanging. So it was very simple to produce, and we thought that if we do it so simple, there's a big chance that we are able to produce this somewhere in the world at a factory without having to pay a huge amount of money and put a lot of things in stock. So from the start we made it simple. And then we got our samples, meaning we sent the designs of course to a factory, and they made samples for us. We got the samples, got the prices, we made prices for shops, and it was like, this is what they are going to cost. So we had a good margin on the products. Then we went to a trade show in Copenhagen and displayed the collection. And it was quite amazing actually, because we were so different from everyone else at the trade show. So people came, they were looking at it and say, whoa, I gotta try this. But because the collection was so small, so simple, each shop could just buy maybe a few t-shirts, a few sweatshirts. We didn't need them to buy a lot of products. Because we made it so simple, we didn't rely on the shops to buy a lot of products from us. They were actually able to just pick a few t-shirts, a few sweatshirts, and we were able to deliver those products to them because we made everything simple. So it's quite easy for us to produce and deliver it. And once those products hit the stores, everyone sold out. They were different, they were colorful, they had good price points, and the shops didn't buy too much. So all the shops sold out. So when we were at the next trade show 6 months later, everyone came and said, whoa, we sold all your products, can we get some more? Then we were there with a slightly bigger collection, not much actually, and they bought new products, but they bought more of them. So that's the way it started rolling. And then season after season, it just grew and grew and grew. As a new brand, I think it's a good thing being sold out in the stores, because if you deliver a product and they sell it very well, maybe they only bought 10 pieces, but they sell it, they will get the feeling, whoa, this product moved fast. I don't have any more, I want to have more. And it will also give the idea to other shops or other people that wants to try and buy the product that it's not so easy to get. Because it's a lot better to start out that way, not tying up a lot of money in stock, and just be able to turn over things really fast, be able to deliver products to the stores, and be able to make sure that there's an interest and a hype around your product. Because if it's too easy to get when you're a small clothing brand, it might not be that interesting. Of course you need to consider what it is you're doing, because this might work for very small design labels. But if you want to start out and be a big brand, push the market and push good price points, then you need to start out differently. Then maybe it's a better idea to do a mass volume production and go for low prices and provide it to many stores, and it's possible to get it in many places. There are different strategies, but you need to figure out what you want to do. But I would say if you are a small brand, start slow, start small, and try and figure out what you want to do on the way. Because design might change and your ideas might change when you're learning things in the beginning. In 2006, when we started Björkvin, we designed this small collection and we were trying to find a place to develop our samples. And actually the factory that we own today is the factory that did our first samples. We started working with the factory before we took over the factory. And we started working with this small team, super motivated, nice guys that were they understood our products. And they were helping us know everything that we needed to know about production. So we sent them our designs. It was quite simple, but they helped us with fittings and choose the right materials. So quite easily, I would say, we ended up with a nice collection, easy to produce, nice fabrics, nice quality, nice labels. Everything was actually spot on from the beginning. And it was a huge reason for our success, because things looked nice from the beginning. Because there's so many brands out there and they try with a bad setup from the start and it doesn't really look nice. And people can spot that. You know, the shops they're not easy to fool. They've seen so many good products. They see so many clothing lines. So you need to be good. You need a skilled factory. You need a good product to succeed. When we found the factory that helped us get started, it's actually a very typical example of how it works in this business. Because nobody really wants to tell where they produce their things. And it was very difficult to Google it. We tried and we couldn't really find any good factories. Or at least we found some, but there were so many that we didn't really know which one to approach. But luckily, one of my friends, he had heard about this factory in Portugal that was producing some nice t-shirts. And since we just needed t-shirts and sweatshirts, we were like, okay, let's go to Portugal and meet these guys. And I think we were quite lucky that the first factory that we visited was the one. It could have been a mistake, could have been another factory that would have been better, but we were lucky that this one actually worked for us. When we got our samples, we exhibited at the Copenhagen trade show. There's a fair every 6 months in Copenhagen, there's a fair in Paris, in Berlin. There are many trade shows around the world. And for us, because we are from Denmark, it made good sense for us to start out in Denmark. And we just applied, honestly, 3 months before the trade show. Just applied, can we go? And I would say it's not a problem. I mean, you can easily go to a trade show unless you have something very weird that they don't want to exhibit. You can easily get a spot there because they want money and you will obviously have to pay for an area. So it's not a big deal to get there. What is a big deal is once you get there is to make your booth look interesting. You need something there. You need people, you need the buyers to go take a look at your product because there are so many products. You need something different. What we did at that time was actually very different than what all the other brands were doing. The other brands were so nice and clean look. What we did, we had this small area. We put our collection, it was full of colors. We had a huge banner across the booth that said Björkvin, we say sheep, and then there was a huge pink sheep in front of the logo. And was hanging from the ceiling. Then we had 300 beer cans that we sprayed black, and we made Björkvin. We spray printed Björkvin in pink on each can by hand, and then we put them there. Super cold, nice beer, and everyone that was passing by, they got out for the beer. They would say, "Oh, come take a look at our collection." And it was easy to see our collection because it was full of colors, and everything else was not full of colors. And you had this huge sheep just laughing at you when you passed by. So people were like, whoa, something's going on in there, what is it? You know, they just wanted to go and visit and see what we actually had there. Maybe it was different, maybe they wanted to buy it, maybe not, but they had to go and see. So once they were there, we could talk to them, we could say, oh, the price is this or that, you know. So once you start talking to people, it's easier. You can offer them a beer, give them a catalog. So I don't think you need to complicate it. You don't need to be there with expensive furniture. You just need to be there yourself. You need to sell your idea. You need to be proud of what you're doing. And you need to convince everyone that passes that your product is something that they cannot live without. They need your product. When we were there at the trade show and we had all these clients passing, they started placing orders. And we were brand new in this business. We didn't know anything. Honestly, we didn't know anything about how to take our samples and make them into a real production. We didn't know that much about it. So we were there, we were getting orders, and at the end of the trade show, we had these orders, and I remember we sold 4,500 pieces, and we were like, whoa, that's 4,500 pieces. It's a lot of products we need to produce. So we went to the factory and said, we got this order, we have no idea what we should do with it. Please help us out here. We had an idea about how many small we wanted, how many medium. So we did a size split. But apart from that, we didn't know that much. So the factory actually helped us out. And I think the factory made us avoid lots of mistakes, because if we just produced at a place that didn't help us at all, we would have done tons of mistakes. So I think we were quite lucky that we didn't really do any mistakes in the beginning. Of course, there are small things like, oh, we should have put another label or put the embroidery somewhere else maybe, or, you know, design-wise. But production-wise, we were quite lucky that the place we worked with they were super professional. And I remember these 4,500 pieces arriving in our office, because we had a small office at the time. And all the boxes, they were just there we didn't have any room left to pack them, but we packed every single order for the clients by hand ourselves. So we split the orders, we packed them, put them in boxes and shipped them to the clients. And then we just crossed our fingers that they would sell. And actually just took a few weeks. The first shops were starting calling us saying, whoa, we sold out. Do you have more? In the beginning we had a few more pieces, but then we simply sold out. And they were, can we reorder? When can we get more? And I remember we were like, whoa, how fast can we actually reorder? Because we didn't know anything about production. So we just called up the factory and said, please help us out, we need more products. And again, they were super nice, helping us, telling us, okay, delivery time for this, we need 6 weeks to order the fabric, and we need 4 weeks maybe to cut and sew the products. So I think they helped us out a lot, and we avoided a lot of mistakes. But I can see now that looking back, it could have gone terribly wrong. I mean, we could have lost so much money if we put them in the wrong company or trusted the wrong supplier. So looking back, I would say we were lucky, but we could have done more research. We could have gone more times to Portugal, or we could have maybe talked to people that were more experienced in production than we were. When you start a clothing company, or any other company actually, I think it's important that you consider who are you, what kind of team are you actually building. I don't think we thought that much about it, to be honest, but my partner and I were working very good together. And the things that we didn't know anything about, the factory knew. My partner, when we started the company, was super skilled in terms of sales. He had a huge network. I didn't have any network, so we worked super good together. We didn't know anything about production, but the factory knew a lot of things about production. So all together, including the factory, we were an amazing team. And I think that helped us a lot, because we had everything that we needed. We knew how to sell, we knew how to produce, how to design, everything. And that is a big thing. So when you start out with something, it's important that you consider who are your partners. If they're not partners in your company, try and find suppliers or other companies that can help you with the things that you don't know how to do. Because you need to do everything. Somehow you need to figure out to do everything. When you start a brand, I think you need to have many different skills. You need to be able, if it's a clothing brand of course, you need to be able to design a product. You need to design something that you think is nice, but you also need someone to be able to look at the market and say, what can we sell? And once you get your products, you need to actually sell them. So you need some kind of knowledge about the market, how to sell a product, how to do the right price points. And in general, just figure out a way to distribute your product. Then you need someone that knows about production, fabrics, labels, how to do a nice product, and how to make your samples and production be nice. Then of course, once you start selling things, you need someone that can make invoices, that knows about accounting, but you can get help with lots of these things. Don't think that you need to do everything yourself, but consider what it is that needs to be done and build a team yourself, or partners or business partners in other companies. You need to consider your team. When you're designing something, you need to know what you want to design. You need to know what product you want to do, and you can decide by researching the market. What do you think you would make sense to do? Of course, you need to, if it's a fashion product, you need to love fashion in some way. You need to know what's going on in the fashion business. What's trendy, what's not trendy. You need to figure out what's going on out there. I mean, if it's Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or whatever, you need to figure out what's going on. You need to research the market and figure out what's your place in the market. Where should you aim for? What should you aim for in the market? Of course, you need to love the fashion business in some way if you want to work with fashion, because it needs to be your hobby, your interest. So it's an interest for you to figure out what's actually going on in the market. But there are so many things that you can do. You can go to shops and ask what's selling right now. What sizes do you sell? What colors do you sell? What's working, what's not working? You can read blogs, you can talk to friends, people. You can simply go to your friends and ask, what are your favorite t-shirts? You can say which color, when you go and buy a new t-shirt, what are the colors you will buy? What is the problem when you buy a t-shirt? What's a good thing when you buy a t-shirt? All these things, you can do so much research just with your close surroundings. There's a lot of information out there, and the more information you get, the more you can put into your product. Because believe me, you don't want to do something that's not moving out there. You don't want to do a product that's not selling, because it will end up in your stock and you will be the only one paying for it. So figure out what you can sell. Also, because selling to friends is a very good start. So talk to your friends, get as much information from them as you can, and they will also help you later on. They will support your project because they may feel that they are a part of it. So get as much help as you can. It will get you a long way. Finding out what the market is all about and what's moving out there doesn't necessarily have to tell you what you should design, but it will give you a very good idea about what's possible to sell. And I'm not saying that you should compromise your design, because at the same time I'm saying that you should be different, that you should do something else. Because don't just go to a shop, figure out what's moving and do the exact same project. There are still things that you need to consider when you do your design. Because you can't just go to a shop and try and sell them something that is twice as expensive as what they are selling in the store already. Or you can't go to a shop and sell them something completely different and doesn't fit in their shop. So of course you need to consider who's your target group, what other brands are you selling your product next to. But at the same time, be true to what you want to do. Consider that maybe you are actually ahead of the market. Maybe you're doing something that the others didn't look at or didn't think about yet. So be true to what you want to design, but get as much information as possible. It can never hurt to get as much information as possible. So we just had our first collection delivered. We went to our first trade show. We delivered all the first orders out, and then people started calling us more than we expected, a lot more. They sold out all their products. So we were like, what to do now? So I called up the factory and said, can I get any more products? And they were like, sure, just place an order. And luckily for us, it didn't take the factory long. I think it took around 1.5 months, 2 months for us to get a new production home. And those were kind of just the same products as we did the first season. We changed a few colors, but that was more or less it. We just wanted to provide the shops with a few more products until we would go to the next trade show 6 months later. So 6 months later, we went to the next trade show in Copenhagen, and we went there with our next collection that we designed. I think when you design your second collection or even another collection, you need to consider how different should it be from the first collection. We decided from the start, we didn't know that much about fashion. We wanted to keep it simple. Our main idea was, we want to do something that people like to wear. It needs to be colorful, it needs to be fashion with a twist of humor, and nothing else. It didn't have to be super advanced, it didn't have to be a completely new look every season. So we did something simple, which in terms of production also is very nice, because the factory knew all our products from the start. They just had to change colors, had to change prints. We didn't have to start all over when we did the second collection. So we did our second collection and we went to the second trade show. And we were there again. We had the spray painted beers, just another color on. We had another collection this time. It was not We Say Sheep. It was about penguins and pipes. So we called the collection BRANDIn, Penguins and Pipes. And we were there with these products that had small penguins on and pipes. And people are like, what's up with those? But that was just our view of the fashion 6 months later. And they were like, okay, we'll buy that. And that time, I think, is what moved us from being a very small brand to seeing something that was actually potentially to be a very big brand, because it grew very fast. I think we finished the second trade show with not just 4,500 pieces like first season, but something like 30,000 pieces sold. So it grew crazy. It was a very fast growth in a company. Going from a very small production to a larger production is something that will change your company a lot, because in terms of production, there are so many things you need to consider. The risk is bigger suddenly. Once you order a style, it might not be 50 pieces or 100 pieces you're ordering. Maybe you need to order 200 or 300 of the same color. So it's a big deal, and it's a bigger chance of losing money if there's a problem with it. So you need to be sure that it's working and that everything is running smoothly. So we went to Portugal. We sat down with the manufacturers and talked a lot with them and said, okay, now we are here. How do we approach this? And they were the ones that taught us about the different samples. That first you need to do a salesman sample, and you need to get a size set and a pre-production sample and maybe a shipment sample. There are different ways you need to work, different steps that you want to follow to make sure that your production is working fine. So they taught us all this. We didn't know anything when we started out. And slowly, because we had the right partners, we just grew with them, and we learned a lot on the way. And it actually went on like that for the next many seasons. And when we hit the third year, we've only been in business for 3 years, and we sold 500,000 pieces per year. It was a lot of products. I mean, we had to change the office space. We had to get people helping us packing the goods. We had so many things we need to solve that we honestly didn't know anything about. And I think you need luck to succeed, but you also need to surround yourself with the right people. Happy people, creative people, but skilled people that want to take responsibility as well, because you can't do everything yourself. And once you start growing, you need more people. Designing and selling a brand is one thing, but marketing is a huge factor now. When we started our brand 11 years ago, it's not that it was not that big a deal, but there were no Facebook. MySpace just started, but there were no Instagram. So the way you would market your product was very different from what it is today. Magazines were much more important. The fact that there were a lot of products in the stores was an important factor, because you would have all your clients or all your end consumers visiting stores, and the more products you would have in the store, or the nicer they were displayed, the more they would tend to buy. Of course, it's kind of the same today, but you need now you need to do a lot more Instagram, Facebook. You need to consider your entire online marketing much more than we did. So if I should look back and say what should I have done differently, I think I should have. It's difficult to predict the future, but I think I should have looked more into online marketing, because it's important. It's super important. It's where everything is happening now. Also because fashion is moving faster and faster. When we started out 10, 11 years ago, it wasn't that fast. I mean, you had time to do your production, you had time to deliver. But now everything is online. You see a style on Instagram, and everyone wants to buy it now. So we were lucky when we started that we had production in Portugal close to our market, Denmark. And when we wanted to expand to other parts of Europe, we had production very close. So I would say, should I have done anything differently? Yeah, I should have considered online marketing. And if I had done production in China, I should have considered the impact and the the positive thing about doing production very close to your market, where you want to sell your product. We were lucky that it was not an issue for us, but if I should start something today, I would definitely look into the speed of the market now, the speed of the business, that you need to provide the end consumer with something now, a new thing tomorrow. So don't buy too much stock. Find places with low minimums. Don't tie up your cash in stock or huge office space. So be flexible. Consider that the market is moving very, very fast, and you should provide the end consumer with something new very often. That means that it's not that it needs to be from day to day, but you need to consider that once you put something in production, that delivery times are short, that you can get the products very fast, because that's just the way you sell more products. When starting your clothing brand, of course, money is an issue. You need to consider the amount of money you have. You need to consider what your budget is. Where can you go with all this? I remember when we started out our clothing brand, that we sat down and said, okay, what does the different things cost? We talked to the factory and asked, okay, we're doing these samples, how much will they cost? We were like considering to go to the trade show. What could we do there? And we agreed that, okay, we will buy the collection, the samples, we will go to this trade show, we will spend a bit of money on the beers, spray paint them, make a sign, everything. And today I still have the calendar that I had back then, where there's still the page that had my small calculations. How much will it cost to start this brand? And I remember everything put together, the trade show, the samples, the beer cans, everything was 3,850 euros. And I still have the calculations, and sometimes I look at it because, okay, it didn't take more than that. But that was just the sample part. That was the selling part, the going to the trade show part. Because you need to consider if you succeed, what's the next step? So you need to have kind of like a backup plan or a plan that will help you out if you actually sell a lot. Because we were there and we sold those 4,500 pieces. So we had to find money to produce 4,500 pieces. But of course it's easier if you have an order and you know that you sold the products. Maybe it's easier to find the money. I don't know if you can convince your bank or your grandma or you have the money somewhere. But you need to consider, before you start, you need to consider where can you go with this? How much can you afford to sell? Or actually, how much can you afford to buy? When starting a brand, it's very important that you consider how you want to approach the market, how you want to sell your product. What we did 10, 11 years ago is completely different than what you should do today, I think. We started out not even having our own web shop. We started out going to a trade show and selling to other shops. I mean, we had shops coming in saying, we want to sell your product in our store. Fine, and then we took orders. We didn't even consider a web shop until 5 years later. But today the market is completely different, but it still doesn't change the fact that you need to consider how you want to approach the market. There are different ways of doing it. You can follow the simple way, the traditional way that fashion business is working, where you have seasonal collections, you go to trade shows, and you show your product and you deliver to the stores maybe 4 months later. That's one option. You can also do kind of the same, but just have more collections. I mean, maybe have a collection every 3 months, every 2 months. Send out images, catalogs to the shops by email, asking them to place new orders. There are many ways of working with stores like that. You can also focus on doing your own web shop, selling online yourself. That's it. It's difficult just to make a web shop, just to sell products, unless you're very skilled and you know a lot about online sales. Everyone thinks that they can just do a web shop and then they will start selling. It doesn't work like that. You need to Instagram, you need to Facebook, you need to do all these kinds of things, which can sound easy, but it's very difficult. You need to find people that knows how to do it. Of course, if your brand is amazing, nobody can live without it. If bloggers want to show your product, they will. But you need to consider how you want to sell. You can also combine the two things. I think that's what I would do today. Do your own web shop and approach shops at the same time. I'm not saying you should go to a trade show. You can't drive around to the stores, but combine the things so you are visible in stores and online in your own store. When we were in the third year of our business, we sold 500,000 pieces per year. So it was a lot of products. and we were starting to consider what can go wrong from here. And we figured out that if there was any problem with production, we would be in big trouble. So we sat down and figured out, can we secure our production in any way? For us at the time, it made sense to buy our own factory. So what we did was, we took the knowledge and the know-how we had from being a brand and starting a brand and combining it with the manufacturing part. So suddenly we had this company, which we now call RTG Group, that came from starting a brand to evolving it into manufacturing as well. So now we have a company that can combine all this knowledge and expertise from building brands, knowing how to sell, how to design, with the manufacturing part. And I think that's what many of our clients today really appreciate, and that they can feel that we know what the game is about. We're not just a manufacturer that just produce what they tell us to produce. We actually understand the product. And I think that's a huge advantage for us today, and what makes us a different factory and a different company from many other companies. This is just one way of starting a brand. There are many ways of starting a brand. This was just my story combined with my knowledge and my advice in terms of starting a brand. You can do it in many different ways, but what I would say is just make a good team around you. Everything from your business partners, to your co-workers, to your production team, to the factories, to the supplier you work with. Build a strong team, because that will make a huge difference. That's it for now. If you have any questions, or if there's anything about how to start a brand you want me to elaborate, let me know. Hit the comments below, send me an email. Otherwise, that's it for now.